money fit go with it. New style, come the air with it. Me full of peer style, switch it up at any time. Swag it too nice, that's why the body's by my side. Love and live life, call it how I see it. Take over this in long time, them calling me the realest. Money when me got me happy blow that. Can't spend it when me gone, so knows the chance. Can't spend it when me gone, so knows the chance. Knows the chance. New style, coming with new money to go with it. Good times, drinks up in the air with it.
All right, we are back. This is episode two of our podcast, and we are so excited today because today is the magical day of all the weed smokers. Today is 420.
Happy 420, guys.
So me and Ken just wanted to get on here. We have a short episode for you today, but we just wanted to kind of get on here and talk about 420. We wanted to talk about the marijuana industry. We wanted to talk about dispensaries. We wanted to talk about weed and just sort of, chime in on our take about this industry. Do you have anything that you want to start off by saying, Ken?
Well, yeah, guys, I want to start off by saying that Zuli is very passionate about this subject. Simply because we've seen and anybody who's in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and older, we've seen the marijuana or the cannabis industry change. We think about, Venetia likes to call them the neighborhood herb dealers. We see how how it's gone from people that you can pick up the herb from on the street to now in most states, in a lot of states, especially on the West Coast, California, Nevada, Colorado, Oregon, we see that there's dispensaries now. Marijuana has turned recreational, so it's not as easy. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm sure it is still easy for some people to get their herb from the neighborhood.
It's not. It's not. I first of all, I just want to start off by saying that I am not an advocate for the way that the legalization of marijuana is happening. Of course, I'm an advocate for legalizing marijuana, especially for the health benefits and things like that come along with it. We know that it's helped people with seizures. We know that it's helped people with anxiety. We know that it's helped people with cancer and with pain. And for me personally, when I was pregnant, I had a horrible pregnancy. And this is sort of something I don't really talk about, but I was prescribed promethazine when I was pregnant. And for me, I thought that was insane that I was prescribed promethazine for my nausea. I was prescribed that and a bunch of other really hardcore medications. And to be honest with you guys, I took cannabis. I took it in the form of eating it and a CBD, and I also would vape it. And it was the only thing that allowed me to get through 9 months of throwing up all day, every day. Am I exaggerating?
Oh, absolutely. No, she's telling the truth, guys.
It was the only way I was able to get through throwing up all day, every day. So I'm an advocate for cannabis as a medicine. So for me, I'm not against the legalization of it, but I am against the way that it's happening. And that is these dispensaries popping up and people being able to just go into the store and buy weed like they're buying cigarettes or they're buying alcohol or they're buying chips. And it's frustrating to me because for me, 1 through 10, you don't need to be opening up any dispensary until you freed all of the people who have been incarcerated for charges of marijuana.
That's what's the crazy thing is that there are men and women who are currently incarcerated for selling marijuana. Basically, what the government has done is gentrify the marijuana industry. They've taken jobs away from the men that they locked up in their prisons, and they found a way to make money off of the men's jobs who are incarcerated in their prisons. It's sickening, if you ask me.
Well, it's more than that because they've taken their jobs, but they've created felons. And how hard is it for a felon to get a job? And you can't buy a firearm, and you have all of these restrictions. But it's wrong to me to create a felon off of something that like I told Kenyatta, it's basically like they locked up the weed man and stole their business right from under them.
That's exactly what they've done. It's like they've taken the weed man's jobs, put them behind bars, in their prison camps, and taking their jobs, and now they're making money off of it, while these people are sitting behind jail. It's gross.
And it's not just money, though. It's billions. It's $1 billion industry of the taxes that they put on it. So, for example, if you go into the dispensary and say that they advertise, okay, the weed is $10, but by the time that you end up buying it, you've ended up spending $15 on a $10 pack of weed, the $5 coming from the additional taxes and fees that it causes to buy from the dispensary. So not only did you steal the industry, but you tax the industry. And then it's like there's almost no way that they could have regulations on it at first because they didn't know who the growers were. They didn't know who they were getting it from. And now, since they've basically incarcerated all of the people, not everyone, of course, not everyone has been incarcerated off weed charges, but they incarcerated a significant amount of black men specifically for marijuana. I remember people would get fines, but go to jail for having a dub on them. And now you go into the dispensary and it's beautiful and it's all decorated and there's weed plants everywhere and pictures of cannabis and all of these display cases with all of these different strains, indica and sativa, and and it's this whole industry now when it was just a crime not even 10 years ago. Not even in some places it actually is still a crime, but the only reason that it's a crime, and this is the important part to remember, the only reason it's a crime is because they couldn't tax it, because the corporations couldn't come up off of it. It's greed. It's unjust. So actually what this episode is about is not just to discuss the cannabis industry, is to call for a boycott of dispensaries. I know. Some of y'all don't want to hear that.
I mean, I know a lot of people who don't want to hear that. I'm with someone who doesn't want to hear that. I mean, I think about, about my girlfriend, and she, when we travel, we have residency. Well, we don't really have residency anywhere. Let me go ahead and put that out there. But when we travel, we're full-time travelers. When we travel to the West Coast, it's easy for her to go this crazy thing is, when you think about like California, before the dispensaries came, it was easier to call somebody up and see who had some herb. Yeah. And go get the herb from them. Now,
you can't find anyone in California, in Las Vegas, in the West Coast places, in Colorado. You can't find the weed man. Nobody sells.
Where is the weed man?
He's in jail. He's in jail. They locked up the weed man and then opened up a dispensaries to sell his product.
Or the weed who was the weed man probably isn't the weed man anymore because they've raised the taxes. All the taxes that they give that they make these farmers pay. This was their business before marijuana was legal. This was their business. And now, there's millions of dollars in taxes that these people have to pay.
Oh yeah, you have to. One of my friends was looking into joining the cannabis industry when we lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, and she told me just the application alone, the application fee to get into the industry, to become a grower affiliated with growers and to open up a dispensary was $100,000.
That's crazy.
For the application.
Just the app?
Just the application. So you guys mean to tell me that you're straight coming up on just people trying to sign up to do something that they've been doing? So I tell people all the time, I propose boycotting the dispensaries and not buying cannabis from them and advocating specifically, more than anything, for the brothers who are incarcerated on behalf of marijuana charges to be released. Totally. And this is what is so interesting about people, because people will be like, well, people are working on getting them released. Working on getting them released? Why are they not released right now?
Right, because the marijuana industry is booming. I mean, these people got dispensaries everywhere. I don't know how many of you guys
have visited. There's a dispensary on every corner.
If you go to the West Coast, if you go to Las Vegas, if you go to Los Angeles, I haven't been to Colorado yet, but I have been Las Vegas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento. If you go to these places, there's a dispensary on almost every corner. In San Francisco, there's a place I like that about, this place. In San Francisco, there's a place you can go in and smoke your bud. But there's a dispensary on every corner, on every single corner. And then the prices that the people are paying for the marijuana that they're getting from the dispensaries, how can the weed man possibly match that? You know, or the weed man probably is raising his prices. You know, who knows? It's crazy. It's like and the interesting thing is now that there are dispensaries, the people act like they can't live without dispensaries. When we was living without dispensaries before dispensaries was even dispensaries. There's still some states where they live without dispensaries.
It's the ease and being able to just go and just get it and not have to wait on the weed man who, you know, he has to be discreet. So it's not like he can just pack up everything and come straight over to your house. He's got to figure out how to package it and to hide it so he doesn't get caught by their agents and stolen from. Because you hear stories all the time of people who, agents who come and arrest people for marijuana and then steal their supply.
Wow.
And take the supply and then sell it back in the streets. And if you don't think that's happening, you're being naive. You're being naive. Because the only agenda with these people is money.
Yeah.
And so the fact of the matter is people are going to go to the dispensary and spend their money because it's easy. They have a variety of strains. It's just like going to freaking Walmart. Who can resist Walmart?
So I want to read an excerpt from this blog on, it's digboston.com, and this guy, the name of the blog, the title of the blog is The Gentrification of Weed, or the Year I Ditched My Mass Medical Marijuana Card. And basically what he's going over is, you know, his experience before marijuana was legalized or cannabis was legalized. And then he goes into what happened after. So he basically says, you know, he was told by a doctor that he needed marijuana. Then he said, I recently ran into the wife of a friend of mine. I asked how he was, and she told me that he had only 3 years left to serve in prison for growing marijuana. But wait, I thought, not only is medical marijuana legal, but now recreational use is too. It's even legal to grow weed in your home these days. A few months later, I was speaking to a hip-hop artist I know in Boston. He had just served a 5-year sentence for possession with intent to distribute marijuana. In this case, the cops used the old tactic where they didn't bust him for the pound he had. They busted him for the most money he could have theoretically made from that pound. A pound is roughly $3,500. But if you break that into 25 grams, then the street value, a term that is almost always a lie, is nearly over $11,000. These two friends of mine look an awful lot like everyone I bought weed from before it was legal. Why are they doing time when what they do isn't even illegal now? Why are people still in prison for selling or possessing weed? Only a government could get away with that. Interesting.
Right. Release those people in jail for selling weed, or we are not coming to the dispensaries. We don't want your marijuana card. Fuck it. Excuse my language. That's how it has to be. Because, first of all, and I tell people this all the time, jail is an awful place.
It's awful.
It is an awful place. And so what you mean to tell me is that you're living the life of luxury, cashing out every night with hundreds of thousands of dollars in the vault.
Well, there are people in your
vault. You got a vault of money and a vault of human bodies.
And then, guys, let's think about this. For all of people who buy from the dispensaries, what do you think they're putting in your cannabis? I mean, what do you think they're putting in there?
GMO.
Yeah, Zuli swears that it's GMO
it's
cannabis.
GMO cannabis. I said, that's what I said when I first heard that weed was going to be legalized and that they were going to be opening up spaces for marijuana. I was like, GMO weed, here we go. Oh, hell. I'm going to have to stop smoking. Because I'm not about to be smoking no GMO weed.
Right. I mean, the way I see it, is if the government has their hand in it, especially with the greed that's involved, there's something up with the weed. You know, the movie that came out, I believe it was in 1937. Told y'all we were going to have a movie for y'all. And I just want to kind of reference this movie. It's called Reefer Madness. I'm sorry. It came out
yeah. And then they have all those crazy images with the teens with weed and they're going psycho. Yeah.
It came out in 1936. Says it's an American propaganda film revolving around the melodramatic events that ensue when high school students are lured by pushers to try marijuana from a hit and run accident to manslaughter, suicide, attempted rape, hallucinations, and descent into madness due to the marijuana addiction. You know, that's a video I was watching was actually saying that the marijuana that they use at, and this is just, you know, this is just people's opinions, but the marijuana that they're selling at the dispensaries is causing the people to become addicted. Where cannabis is for medical purposes. You know, it doesn't have any. I guess the natural cannabis or the organic. Can we even call it that? Organic cannabis? I don't know.
I mean, you have to understand it's a plant that's evolved from another plant. Okay. So, like, one of the things that you can't deny about marijuana is that, or any plant, when people talk about, like, a hybrid plant, right? Marijuana in itself, I mean, I don't know where it grows naturally, but I can imagine that it's from hemp.
Okay.
Because it grows exactly the same. Well, the leaves are the same. And it's like a form of hemp. I have to actually look in my plant book and look at the botanical name and let you guys hear what that is and what that means. If it's in here. You know, I don't know. You know, they'd be scared to talk about weed.
Which is crazy. Because it's natural. It's a natural herb.
But yeah, so every plant is... Anyways, essentially what I'm trying to say is that every plant evolves from another plant. So weed, of course, is evolved from hemp using a series of chemicals and additives that are added to the soil to create the chemical compounds that it has so that when you inhale it or when you eat it or when you drink it or when you steep it, you get these certain benefits from it. And I tell people, I mean, from what I know, you can only get THC from a plant by heating it up. But one of my friends, she swears she eats the cannabis just buds by themselves, and she swears she gets high.
I mean, that's what edibles are, right? Well, no, I guess the edibles melt the THC, or it extracts the THC from the plant.
Right.
But still, it's like, you know, how do we know that they're not putting stuff in, you know, your marijuana that you're getting from a dispensary? How do we know they're not putting stuff in it to make these things happen, these hallucinations, these rapes, suicides, like they refer to in Reefer Madness? How do we know that that's not what they're doing?
I would say this. When you look at statistics of people who smoke marijuana, they're not the ones doing that stuff. To be real.
Well... yeah, I mean, and during the hippie movement, yeah, that's not. I mean, they're not the people who are doing that stuff. But that was before.
Oh yeah, before they got
there was dispensaries.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, I don't. That's GMO weed. You know what I mean? That's what I say. Non-GMO. I always say, grow your own everything. Grow your own everything. If they could do it, you can do it.
Right.
If they had access to it, you have access to it. God gave you this earth. God gave you this place. You're not exempt from the knowledge of anything.
Right.
So you can find out, okay, well, how does this plant grow? And what does this plant do? And how does it make me feel in this form? And what is the difference between this plant and this plant? But for me, I'm not willing to take the risk of GMO weed. And unfortunately, living in a place like Las Vegas, with all the dispensaries on every corner, the weed man's like, oh, you can walk to the dispensary. You can walk to the dispensary. Why am I coming to your house to deliver to you a dub? You can go to the dispensary and get the dub, pay the extra $4 or $5.
Because if I drop it off to you, I'm charging
$30, $25 maybe. I'm gonna tax you anyway because I'm dropping it off. So that's how they get rid of them, and then they hire some of the people. But you have to understand, ain't never once not. I mean, I have seen a few black people in the dispensary when I went, but not really.
You know, that's actually what the article was saying.
I don't see no black folks up in there.
He was saying that the people who were arrested for drugs, for marijuana, for selling marijuana, were people that look like him, or people that look like people that look like him. He said now you go into a dispensary, 9 times out of 10 you really ain't gonna see nobody that look like you. You know, it's just
right.
It's interesting. He said he don't see people that look like him in a dispensary.
Right. can. And that's
so it's so many points that I guess it's really two main points. One of them, the main point, is why would we pay money to an industry that has people behind bars doing the same thing that they're doing?
Release those people now.
I mean, seriously, when you think about the law of common law, it's who was harmed by these people. I mean, I guess I can't really say that because people do kill, they rob for marijuana. I guess you'll know if they know that there's someone that sells marijuana. Somebody may run up on him and. Yeah. But I guess it's the consuming, or I don't know. I feel like the neighborhood weed dealers, they just trying to keep the peace. They're trying to feed their family, and they're trying to keep the peace. The non-GMO weed, it makes the people. I mean, I guess any cannabis makes people happy, or it makes you sleep, or
It's not. Yeah, it's nobody's doing any of those things. But, of course, they're going to slowly but surely start to sprinkle the media with things that say that. All of a sudden, people are showing up in the hospital throwing up from weed. What? Weed stops nausea. So, what that's not weed. That's something else. They was doing something else. They wasn't doing weed. And this is coming from people who have smoked weed over a series of years.
Well,
and I do agree, some people are really overuse it. I do agree. Sometimes you have to take a break and give yourself a break. If that means just smoking once a day or just smoking once a week or just not smoking at all slowly and trying to only smoking when you don't really feel well or when you're going through something, and not becoming, I do agree with what that guy was saying on that video about addiction. Addiction is never a good thing. It's never, if you have to depend on something, you're not in a mentally safe space. And so for me, it's wow. That is true. And that's where a lot of people who smoke do have to evaluate. And other people who don't smoke have to stop judging.
Well, that's another thing that's interesting is when marijuana became legal in Las Vegas and even in California, you see people who come up in the dispensaries that you probably wouldn't even expect is a smoker or that uses cannabis.
Well, I will say I know that a lot of people don't partake in it because it is illegal. In their mind, it's it's illegal. I'm not doing it. But breastfeeding was illegal at one point in public. Breastfeeding. What do you mean? This is how I feed my baby, my newborn baby. This is how I feed my baby. How is this illegal for me to do? People were texting me, "Oh my God, it's illegal. Breastfeeding is now legal." What?
That should just be normal. That should just be given right.
That is.
How's the baby gonna eat in public?
Kenyatta. I mean, kid. I mean, seriously. Because, I mean, that honestly, that's the only sense. That's the only thing that makes sense is feeding your child. So, plants grow and people partake in plants.
Why it wasn't illegal? Why it wasn't legal, sorry.
I assume because they had no regulation over it.
They couldn't get their dirty hands in it.
Right. They didn't know. Like I told you, they slowly but surely stole this industry. Slowly but surely stole it. So they didn't know who's growing it, who has it, where is it? Because, remember, it was probably coming from other places at some point. Foreign.
Well, it's interesting. I was listening to a show today that said that the best strands for marijuana, the real strands, I guess the strands that haven't been affected with pesticides, I guess the pure strands, are only in two places, and that was Jamaica, Rastafari. You don't know. That was Jamaica, and I believe he said East Asia or East. I think it
Middle
was
East?
The Middle East.
Yeah, that Afghani skunk, baby. Right? That Afghani skunk. So yeah, I think I don't know. I think that people can grow. I think that plants, to me, when people say certain plants aren't natural. It's okay, I understand what you mean, that it's probably had chemicals fed into it and made it grow a certain way. I think that you can learn to grow a seed naturally. You don't have to do those things to a seed and see what happens. It may produce different effects. That's the thing, is that, like you were saying earlier, people just want to get higher and higher and higher. 5G, it just wants to get faster and faster and faster. But why? But in what other ways can we go about achieving that?
And I mean, and when you think about, you know, Jamaica, especially the Rastafarians, they smoke the herb because it's a form of meditation. That's how they meditate. That's how they meditate with Jah. Not something that they doing just to get high. It's a religion. Then, in this country, unfortunately, has turned it into a debauchery.
Oh, that's good.
That's what they've done. Whereas in other places, they're using marijuana to meditate and to meditate on the herb. This country has just turned it into a mess. And it's unfortunate, it's disgusting, it's disrespectful. That's not what cannabis is. It's not here for all the greed and for them to put their dirty little hands in it and put opioids in it and whatever. So we support the neighborhood herb dealers. We actually encourage you all to stop, especially for the people who have people locked up in jail, in prisons, especially for people who have been a victim to this BS. If you ever caught a charge for carrying some motherfucking marijuana, if you ever been behind prison for having marijuana on you, you definitely should be the ones like, screw this. I'm not about to go to these dispensaries and pay these people when they done charged me for carrying it, and now all of a sudden it's legal and took my freedom away from me. And when you make money, and we'll go into this in more detail in another show, but when you go to work and you use your energy and your time to make money so that you can have your bills paid, you don't have time for no officer to come solicit you for a debt because you carrying around a little bit of herb, and now you got to pay a court fine or a fee or a ticket for having some marijuana on you. Especially when now it's legal to carry around you or to carry on you in certain states. And eventually, in my opinion, it's going to be legal across this country. I know that New York and New Jersey are racing. It's an urgent thing for them to go ahead and marijuana legalize. So it's just like, people, if you've ever been a victim to the BS, you support your neighborhood, herb dealer. Let's put the money back in the people's hands. Let's put the money back in the people's hands. Let's put the business back in the people's hands not in the hands of a greedy government.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap it up with this discussion. But we want to thank you guys for listening. Give us your feedback. What do you think about dispensaries?
And we're open
to whatever you feel. Don't come in my comments being rude. You have something that you feel, you can express that openly, because we're learning too. We're growing too. Don't judge you. You don't judge me. If you're not a smoker, this is not for you.
Right, and this forum, Serenity Solutions is about educating each other. Zulie and I, we don't know it all. We're learning the same way everyone else is. We're trying to do our research. We're trying to educate ourselves. We're trying to educate the people. No, we're not here to act like we know it all or say who's right versus wrong.
This is a discussion.
Right.
This is a discussion, a mature adult discussion. So, mature adults, you are welcome to comment. Let's talk about this. What do you think about dispensaries? Are you boycotting dispensaries? I know that people are helping to get brothers out of jail, but how soon should that happen? Talk to us. Let us know what you think.
Real quick, before we go ahead and wrap it up, guys, please follow us on YouTube. We're on YouTube, Serenity Solutions. Subscribe to our videos. We're on SoundCloud.
Follow, like, and hit up Gia K, because her music is our theme songs for our show.
So. And we thank you so much for your time. Happy 420 to everybody. Much love and respect.
Good times, drinks up in the air with it. Bad times don't come, so get over it. Get up, get out, and get something. Pimp up, get out, and quit fronting. Cause nothing in life comes for free. Yeah, I run these streets don't run me. The price don't come cheap. Style. You gotta pay what you weigh. Fuck all that he say, she say. They gon' say what they say. If they talked about Jesus, they gon' talk.